أنها تمثل مجموعة من الدول، فهي إلى حد ما مجموعة مصغرة عن الأمم المتحدة، في ظل الوضع الذي تعاني فيه المنظومة الدولية بأنه الذي صار يحكم العلاقات الدولية للأسف الشديد قانون القوة وليست قوة القانون. وبالتالي هذه إشكالية أمام هذه المنظمة وأمام المنظمات الإقليمية والدولية في هذا الجانب. أنا لا أريد أن أطيل، وسأعطي الكلمة العام الأستاذ الدكتور كندي جوستون عن توقيع مذكرة تفاهم ما بين منظمة أليكو وجامعة مارغا الماليزية. فليتفضل الأمين العام ليتحدث.
Thank you, Excellency, the Vice President, for the opportunity. I will now call upon the representatives of the University of Marga, Malaysia, for the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding between ALCO Secretariat and the University of Marga.
Good afternoon, delegates. I hope you enjoyed your lunch. We now start with the second general meeting, which is devoted to general statements from member states of ALCO. But before we begin, may I request the delegates wishing to make statements to please states as possible. In any case, your entire statement will be reflected in the verbatim record of the proceedings to be prepared by the ALCO Secretariat in accordance with the Rule 13, Paragraph 16 of the statutory rules of the ALCO after the session. Further, to facilitate this work, member states are recommended to submit a written statement to the Secretariat. If the statement is made in Arabic, it is appreciated to attach the translation in English as well. The theme of the general statement is multilateralism and the international legal order based on the international law. I would like to encourage participants to make a statement along the theme to have a focused discussion. Member states wishing to make their general statement should register themselves with the ALCO Secretariat. General statement will be delivered from the podium. The order of speakers throughout the annual session will be as follows. First, member states. Second, observer states, if any, and third, international organization. Secretary General to make procedural encouragement, which I think you have already done. According to the names given to me so far, I have Oman. Yes.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. معالي الرئيس، سعادة الأمين العام، أصحاب المعالي والسعادة، رؤساء الوفود، المندوب الأفاضل والمراقبون، يطيب لي في مستهل هذه الكلمة أن أتقدم بالتهنئة إلى معالي الرئيس ونائبه لاختياركما لإدارة أعمال الدورة 58 للمنظمة الاستشارية القانونية لدول آسيا وأفريقيا، مؤكدين لكم دعمنا وتعاوننا التامين، ونثني كذلك على حسن إدارة رئيس الدورة السابقة وعلى الجهد الذي بذله خلال فترة رئاسته. ويسرني أيضا الترحيب بإعادة انضمام جمهورية الفلبين، والتي لا شك أنها ستكون إضافة قيمة ومثرية للمنظمة. كما يسعدني أنا وفد بلادي المشارك في أعمال هذه الدورة أن نتقدم بخالص التحية وصادق التقدير إلى جميع الوفود المشاركة التي لبت دعوة المنظمة للإسهام في أعمال هذه الدورة وإثرائها بسديد آرائهم وصادق رؤاهم، إذ من شأن ذلك إتاحة الفرصة لتبادل الآراء والاستفادة من تجارب الدول الأعضاء وخبراتها في مجالات عدة، وبما يؤدي إلى مزيد من التقدم والازدهار في مجتمعاتنا. ولا يفوتني أيضا أن أعرب عن عميق التقدير لسعادة أمين عام المنظمة على العمل البناء الذي يبذله منذ ترأسه للأمانة العامة، والتي نأمل في استمرارها ومواصلة دعمها من قبل جميع الدول الأعضاء. كما أتقدم بالشكر لكم معالي الرئيس وللأمانة العامة لإتاحة هذه الفرصة لي من أجل بيان موقف سلطنة عمان من بعض الموضوعات المطروحة للبحث. الحضور الكرام، كما تعلمون أنه قد أخذ موضوع قانون البحار مكانا شبه دائم ضمن أجندة الدورات السابقة لمنظمة الألكو، لما له من أهمية بالغة لجميع الدول الساحلية وغير الساحلية، ناهيك عن حضوره المستمر والمتجدد على الساحة الدولية. فالبحار منذ الأزل ليست مجرد وسيلة تواصل بين الشعوب بصور متنوعة فقط، بل إنها تشكل موردا طبيعيا مهما وعنصرا جوهريا للحفاظ على التوازن البيئي في الكون، الأمر الذي ينبغي علينا أن نقابله بالاهتمام والرعاية المطلوبين، حيث أنها مسؤولية تشترك فيها جميع الدول ويعود نفعها على الجميع كافة دون استثناء. وليس أدل على ذلك من ضرورة تضافر الجهود الدولية للحفاظ على التنوع الأحيائي والبيئة البحرية في المناطق التي لا تخضع للولاية الوطنية للدولة الساحلية، وذلك قبل فوات الأوان، نظرا لما تشهده هذه المناطق من أنشطة متسارعة وأوجه استغلال متنوعة في ظل غياب النظام القانوني الحاكم لها. ومع ذلك فإن الاهتمام الدولي الحاصل حاليا في إطار منظمة الأمم المتحدة للتوصل إلى صك دولي تكميلي لاتفاقية قانون البحار لعام 1982 لحماية التنوع الأحيائي في المناطق التي تخرج عن الولاية الوطنية للدول الساحلية يبعث على الارتياح، داعين الدول الأعضاء في منظمة الألكو بأن يكون لها دور فاعل في هذا الشأن، وأن يكمل كل واحد منهم الآخر بغية التوصل إلى الصك الدولي الذي يلبي طموحاتهم في أسرع وقت ممكن، وأن تستمر منظمتنا الموقرة في متابعة هذا الموضوع وتنسيق الجهود بين الدول الأعضاء بما يعينها على اتخاذ المواقف الملائمة إزاء هذا الموضوع. وإذا انتقلنا إلى الموضوع الآخر المتعلق بحرية الملاحة والإبحار في المياه والمضايق الدولية، والذي نال زخما في الفترة الأخيرة، لذا تم إدراجه ضمن أجندة هذه الدورة، فإن وفد بلادي يود التأكيد على موقف السلطنة التي تطل بنفسها على أحد أهم المضايق المائية الدولية في العالم، ألا وهو مضيق هرمز، وتقع ممراته في ضمن المياه الإقليمية العمانية، ليدعو جميع الدول الأعضاء للتعاون البناء واحترام خطوط الفصل
Moreover, my country calls on all its states to avoid escalation in the national water straits and to resolve differences through diplomatic means to avoid consequences that may have dangerous repercussions on the freedom of navigation and the international trade movement as well as the world's economy as a whole. My country believes that the international community and those states with interest must strive to find peaceful, consistent solutions as the ideal means to maintain the stability and safety of maritime navigation, considering that they are most effective than any other methods of arrangements, reaffirming on the basis of its national sovereignty and national responsibilities its continuous supervision on the Strait of Hormuz to ensure the safety of navigation and guaranteeing the safe movement of passing vessels in this dynamic strait. Settling, Your Excellency Mr. President, settling disputes by peaceful means undoubtedly strengthen and reinforce international peace and security, achieve harmony between the people of the world, and prevent the wasting and squandering of energies and resources of states for futile purposes on the expense of security, development and stability. This approach has been adopted and strongly advocated by my country. Oman has asserted in several fora and occasions in support for the principles of justice, peace, tolerance, dialogue, and solid cooperation between nations and people, and adherence to the principles of fairness, justice, equality, non-interference in the internal affairs of other states, and peaceful settlement of disputes, all pursuant to the principles and provisions of the Charter of the United Nations and the rules of international law, consequently leading to the promotion of rule of law and building trust based on the reciprocal respect for the sovereignty of states and good neighborly relations, which in turn preserve the security, stability and prosperity of states. In this regard, we would like to reiterate our position at the previous session that the parties to a dispute, regardless of its nature and its occurrence or continuance, will jeopardize the maintenance of peace and international security, shall strive to settle it by the peaceful means provided for in international law, especially the UN charters, or through any other peaceful means of their choice. The other states should contribute to achieving such peaceful settlement of disputes by refraining from taking any positions that would escalate conflicts, and because nowadays no part of the world can remain immune to the consequences of international disputes. Your Excellency, Mr. President, speaking of peace and the peaceful settlement of disputes, Palestine comes straight to our mind, which remains under the Israeli occupation to this day, an occupation that rejects all means of peaceful settlement, thus locking doors to any prospect of peace. This occupation continues to disregard the principles of international law and the resolutions of the United Nations to the extent that rocks, trees, and the environment were not spared, let alone humans. The latest evidence of that is this report, which was published on March 15, 2019 by the Special Rapporteur on the situation of human rights in the Palestinian territories occupied since 1967. We call on the member states to make greater efforts to reject unilateral positions that support the occupation and aim to impose a de facto situation. Doing so is indeed a victory for fairness and justice, and will uphold the rule of law in face of injustice, aggression, and violation of equity. Your Excellency, Mr. President, the adoption of unilateral measures and extraterritorial application of national legislation by some states outside their territory is a matter of concern. These measures are not only contrary to the principles of international law that govern and regulate relations between states, most importantly the principles of equality between states, territorial integrity, and state sovereignty over its lands, but also contradicts with the most basic human rights such as the right to life, development, medicine, water, and food. Furthermore, they may lead to undesired counter reactions. The negative impact of unilateral measures on the enjoyment of human rights was clearly reflected in the report by the Special Rapporteur appointed by the Human Rights Council, Mr. Idris Jazairi. The latter stressed in this report that unilateral measures hinder the full realization of social and economic development by the population of the affected countries, obstructs the commercial relations between states, and puts obstacles against the works of humanitarian organizations. On the basis thereof, my country calls on its counterparts to abide by the rules and principles of international law in their international relations, and to make sure that their actions conform to these principles with the aim to avoid anything that would undermine the trust in the international legal system. And thank you very much.
The delegation of Oman for the statement. Now I call upon the delegate of the People's Republic of China to make the statement.
Session of ALCO. The Chinese delegation is confident that under your able leadership, this session will achieve fruitful results. Our thanks also goes to His Excellency Ambassador Koji Hanada, the President for the 47th session of ALCO, for his contribution to this organization. I would also like to thank the government of Tanzania for hosting this annual session and for their warm hospitality and thoughtful arrangements. I also would like to take this opportunity to express the deep appreciation of my delegation to the excellent work of the ALCO Secretary General, Professor Kennedy Gaston, and his wonderful team. Mr. President, Your Excellencies, more than 60 years ago, guided by the spirit of the historic Bandung Conference held in 1955, Asian and African countries together decided to establish ALCO with a view to strengthening our cooperation and exchanges in international law affairs. Against the backdrop of the changing world we are facing today, the roles of ALCO couldn't be more important. Today, the international order based on international law and with the United Nations at its core is facing grave challenges. Those challenges is posed by unilateralism, protectionism, and acts of certain countries that are in blatant violation and denial of international law, such as bullying, interference in other countries' internal affairs, unilateral sanctions, and disruptive trade wars and tech wars. Once again, the world is at a crossroads after some 70 years after the end of World War II. Whether we choose the right path today will have a profound and long-lasting impact on our common future of humankind. China is of the view that the right path we should follow is multilateralism and an international order based on international law. Since the end of World War II, although there are twists and turns from time to time, this path is the right path that in general leads to peace and prosperity for the world. This is also a path that is widely supported by international community. At the UN General Assembly this past September, there were notably widespread condemnations of unilateralism and protectionism. Mr. President, Your Excellencies, where the world would go lies in the joint efforts of the international community as a whole. Today, Asian and African countries together account for 2/3 of the total number of UN member states and more than 40% of the world economy. We should no longer act as the silent majority. Rather, we should shoulder our share of responsibility in steering the world into a bright future. In this respect, ALCO, as a manifestation of the Bandung spirit and with a rich heritage of Asian-African cooperation in international law, should play a more robust and important role in upholding the international order based on international law. We should promote multilateralism and democracy in international rules-making process, support the increase of the representation and voice of developing countries to ensure the rules are fair, balanced, and inclusive. No single country or bloc of countries shall make rules for the world. We should promote the adherence to international law, uphold the basic principles of the UN Charter and the rules-based multilateral trading system based on the World Trade Organization. We should fulfill our obligations in good faith and oppose the practice of double standard and selective implementation of international law. We should also advocate the core values of international law in safeguarding fairness, justice, and in promoting peace, development, and cooperation, and categorically opposed to the distortion or abuse of international law. We should say no to the practice of the strong do whatever they like, and the weak suffer whatever they must, or the practice of using international law as a pretext to instigate or exacerbate disputes. Last but not least, we should work together to make ALCO stronger, more resilient, active, and visible. To this end, we should try our best to seek common grounds, to promote solidarity, and not let differences divide us. ALCO should keep pace with the evolving trend of international law development, invest more on cutting-edge issues like cyberspace international law. And ALCO should participate more actively in the international rule-making process. It is also important to ensure ALCO acquire adequate, sustainable, and predictable resources that is necessary for it to fully discharge its duties. Mr. President, Your Excellencies, 3 weeks ago, the People's Republic of China celebrated its 70th anniversary. Over the past 70 years, China has always been a promoter of world peace, a contributor to global development, and upholder of international order based on international law. Against the headwind of various challenges the world is facing today, China stands firmly for multilateralism and international law. As China's State Councilor and Minister of Foreign Affairs Wang Yi stressed at the UN General Assembly weeks before, I quote, "The international order needs to go by laws and rules, and acts in violation of international norms can only plunge the world into chaos." End of quote. China is committed to the formation of a new type of international relations and a community of a shared future for all humankind. At the core of these two important initiatives are the idea of justice, fairness, mutual respect, and mutual benefits, and most importantly, adherence to international law. China has always stood side by side with Asian and African countries, in particular developing countries, in preserving international law and international order, and supported the work of ALCO. In 2015, China launched the China-ALCO International Law Exchange and Research Program. Under this program, we have organized 5 international training sessions and received more than 200 legal officers and diplomats from all ALCO member states. We will celebrate the 5th anniversary of this program on Tuesday with a reception hosted by the Chinese Embassy here in Tanzania. And we warmly welcome all ALCO member states to continue to participate in this program in the years to come. Lastly, the delegate of China looks forward to in-depth and constructive discussions on the topics of the session, and we wish this session every success. Thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the delegate of the People's Republic of China for this very insightful statement. I now call upon the delegate of Japan to make their statement.
Honorable Ambassador Dr. Augustine Mahiga, Minister of Constitutional and Legal Affairs and President of the 50th Annual Session, Honorable Ambassador Professor Kennedy Gaston, Secretary General, Honorable Ministers and Attorney Generals, distinguished delegates. First of all, allow me to express our thanks to all members of ALCO for their cooperation in the 57th Annual Session of ALCO held in Japan. And allow me to express my deep appreciation to the government of the United Republic of Tanzania for hosting this year's annual session. I am glad to be back in Africa for the annual session. I am also grateful for the dedicated work by Secretary General Gaston and his staff to prepare for this session. Let me extend our warm welcome to the Philippines, which officially joined ALCO in July this year. It gives me great pleasure to have our Asian neighbor with us today, and I am looking forward to discussing issues relating to development and promotion of international law in Asia and Africa. Having more members is important, so that discussions in ALCO reflect diverse views and ideas thereby contributing to balanced deliberations and further promotion of rule of law in Asia and Africa. Mr. President, 2019 has been an important year for Japan and Africa, as Japan hosted the 7th Tokyo International Conference on African Development, TICAD 7. At TICAD 7, in-depth discussions were held on the three pillars of the meeting: economy, society, and peace and stability. I would like to express our deep appreciation to the representatives of African countries, including 42 African leaders, Asian partner countries, and everyone else who contributed to the successful meeting. Under the theme of advancing Africa's development through people, technology, and innovation, promotion of rule of law was one of the main issues under the pillar of peace and stability. The Yokohama Declaration 2019, which was adopted by the delegates, acknowledges importance of the rule of law, and the Yokohama Plan of Actions 2019, which was introduced as an accompanying document, mentions ALCO as a promoter of the rule of law. Mr. President, let me take this opportunity to share a few highlights over the past year in Japan's activities in the area of promoting and strengthening rule of law. First, in keeping with our commitment made at the last annual session in Tokyo, Japan launched a new program to support the capacity building of ALCO members in the area of international law. It will consist of training programs for working level officials to address challenges concerning important international law issues for ALCO members. We will hold the first program in December this year. Second, Japan has continued to play an active role in concluding multilateral and bilateral treaties. Since the last year's annual session of ALCO, the government submitted 3 multilateral treaties and 10 bilateral treaties to the legislature, the National Diet, and approved. Important multilateral treaties approved by the Diet include 2 IMO-related treaties, namely the Nairobi International Convention on the Removal of Wrecks and International Convention on Civil Liability for bunker oil pollution and damage. By acceding to these treaties, Japan intends to further enhance cooperation with the international community to ensure safety of navigation and protection of marine environment. As for the bilateral treaties, those approved by the Diet in the past year include the agreement on social security between Japan and China, which has come into force as of 1st September 2019. Looking towards the future, Japan will continue to make proactive efforts to promote and enhance the rule of law in the international community. In April 2020, on the same year that Japan will host the Tokyo Olympic and Paralympic Games, Japan will host the 14th United Nations Congress on Crime Prevention and Criminal Justice in Kyoto. The Congress is the United Nations' largest international conference in the field of crime prevention and criminal justice. The overall theme of Kyoto Congress is advancing crime prevention, criminal justice, and the rule of law towards the achievement of the 2030. Agenda items of the Kyoto Congress relate to pertinent issues for ALCO members, such as comprehensive strategies for crime prevention towards social and economic development, and international cooperation and technical assistance to prevent and address all forms of crime, and we look forward to welcoming representatives from ALCO members. Mr. President, there is no doubt that ALCO has served as an important forum for strengthening and promoting the rule of law in Asia and Africa, the 2 growing regions of the world. As our foreign minister said when he addressed last year's annual session of ALCO, where there is rule of law, there is stability, and where there is stability, there is growth. The rule of law is also an important principle for upholding universal values such as democracy and respect for basic human rights. As one of the founding members, Japan remains committed to working with the organization to achieve its goal. At the same time, I would like to invite all members to renew their commitment to strengthen ALCO. As regards its membership, ALCO still possesses greater potential to expand itself beyond the current level. To that end, I have great respect for the efforts made thus far by Secretary General Gaston in reaching out to observer states and other interested non-member states and encouraging them to join the organization. We, as members, also need to fulfill our responsibilities in following up on the Secretary General's efforts. I myself have been reaching out to non-members, mostly in Asia, to talk to my counterparts and share with them the benefits of joining ALCO. At the same time, a stable financial foundation should be ensured so that ALCO can fully play its expected role in promoting the rule of law in Asia and Africa. We have much to do in this regard, including fulfilling our financial obligations. In this regard, I would humbly ask all members to take this issue very seriously. Mr. President, the rule of law is not just about development of international law. ALCO should pay attention also to the importance of settling disputes peacefully in accordance with international law. In this respect, Japan welcomes the continuation of discussion on the topic peaceful settlement of disputes at this year's annual session. Japan believes in the role of international judicial organizations in peaceful settlement of disputes, and this is why Japan has continued to cooperate with the International Court of Justice, the International Tribunal for Law of the Sea, and the International Criminal Court to strengthen their influence functions via contributions both in terms of personnel and financial needs. Japan would like to take this opportunity to appeal for member states' support for the re-election of Judge Yuji Iwasawa in the election of ICJ judges to be held next year in 2020. In closing, Mr. President, my delegation would like to assure you a constructive contribution during the current session. There are many important international legal issues for deliberation over the next few days, and I very much look forward to engaging in discussions with the distinguished delegates. Thank you.
I thank the delegate of Japan for his pro-ALCO statement. I now call upon the delegation of Syria to come and make this statement.
السيد الرئيس، السيد الأمين العام لمنظمة ألكو، أصحاب المعالي والسعادة، أود بداية أن أتوجه بالتهنئة للرئيس ونائبه على تولي رئاسة الدورة 58، كما أود أن أتقدم بالشكر على الجهود المبذولة في إدارة أعمال هذه.
Thanks are also to the Secretary General of ALCO. President, we are meeting today in the 58th session of ALCO at a time when many nations of the world are paying hefty prices of the blood of its people, their security and stability and means of their livelihood due to attempt by some powers to impose their hegemony over other peoples and their resources by way of pushing the world backwards and attempting to impose the principles of unipolar world afresh, and chaos, wars, violation of international and humanitarian laws, creating vis-a-vis the powers striving to establish a world which is more balanced, secure and just, while respecting the sovereignty of states and people's rights to self-determination. Mr. President, we must realize that the world has changed, and then the unipolar world regime is on the verge of decline after it failed owing to increased tension and disputes an escalation of terrorism in all its forms, especially the economic aspect of it, and that the establishment of a new world order based on multipolarity and cooperation among states alone is the guarantee for ensuring international security and stability and prosperity for all peoples of the world. The greed of external powers in our region too has remained unabated over history. The criminal Turkish aggression carried out by Erdogan regime on our country currently is manifestation of such greed with false slogan, but it is an open and blatant invasion and aggression on Syria. Syria has responded to it on various occasions by defeating its agents and terrorists, and will continue to confront it on various forms on every inch of the Syrian territory through the available legitimate means and ways. In spite of the international condemnations of the Erdogan regime is adamant to continue his blatant aggression on Syrian land, planting death and destruction in Syria in an open violation of all the international laws and conventions and UNSC resolutions, all of which reiterate the respect of unity, integrity and sovereignty of Syria. The Syrian Arab regime is reaffirming its complete rejection and a strong condemnation of the blatant Turkish aggression and interference in the internal matters of Syria. It also reiterates the solidarity of the Syrian people under the national flag to take on the Turkish aggression, preserving territorial integrity of Syria and its people, and protection of its sovereignty and its independence decision not to allow anybody to interfere in the Syrian national affair. We call upon the international community to fulfill its obligations to pressurize the Erdogan regime to end aggression on Syria and hold it fully accountable for all after effects of this aggression, and force Turkey to stop its destructive policies which threaten the international peace, security and stability in the region and in the world. Some states mistakenly believe that terrorism may be used as a means to achieve their greeds and selfish goals. Terrorism has been a dominant threat for the whole world, threatening the international peace and security, violation of international treaties and conventions, and use of means that are illegal international law, such as supporting terrorism and imposing economic blockade on independent nations, has become a common thing. This is bound to escalate chaos globally and put future of countries in real danger. Our people have suffered for over 8 years from the scourge of terrorism that has claimed the lives of innocent people with barbarity and caused humanitarian crisis and destroyed infrastructure and resources of the countries. My country, Syria, by virtue of the experience in dealing with the crisis it is going through, believes that one of the biggest reasons for international instability and absence of peace and security in the spirit of international and regional trafficking in terrorism, which cannot proliferate and grow without logistic and financial support by some countries, in addition to protecting and propagating terrorist and extremist views around the world. The tragic events, especially terrorist activities carried out by ISIS and Al-Nusra Al-Front and all other related organizations in Syria are evidence to the escalation of terrorism. In the same context, the practices of the Israeli occupation force, which is still occupying some part of our territory in Golan since 4th of June 1967, and our Syrian Arab people are still suffering from its oppressive and aggressive practices by violation of international humanitarian law and the human rights law. Besides the repeated violations and aggressions by Israel against the sovereignty of the Arab Syrian Republic, or by way of providing support to terrorist organizations by the regimes, some of the regimes in the region. all this constitute an open violation of international law. All Israeli aggressions will never succeed in terrorizing Syrian people, but they have made the Syrian people more adamant and to be believing in their victory towards the end. We want to reclaim the Syrian part of Golan occupied in 1967 in spite of futile attempts by the American president. We want to reiterate that the crisis in Syria will never make us forget our legitimate right, which is inalienable, in claiming back Syrian part of Golan, which has been occupied by Israel. We will continue to demand Israel to stop its terrorist aggressions and violation of international law and international humanitarian law, and making it binding to follow the international legitimacy resolutions, including the UN Security Council resolutions number 242, 338 and 497, which together make it mandatory for these occupation forces to withdraw from this area. We also reiterate the position of Syria, which is in support of right of the Palestinian people in self-determination and establishment of independent state over its entire territory, and Jerusalem being its capital, and ensuring the right of the refugees to return. As per the resolution number 194 of 1948, in spite of the civil war, the terrorist war our country is facing, in spite of the machinations and the attempts by some people which they call the deal of the century, which in fact want to liquidate the Palestinian issue and Palestinian rights. The force unilateral economic measures imposed by some countries against Syrian Arab regime since 2001 is nothing but a means used by some countries as instrument for economic terrorism after they failed in their military and political terrorism against Syria. And they are still continuing in an illegitimate, illegal manner, which is in violation of United Nations Charter and the resolutions of this organization and also other related organizations, all of which are impeding the achievement of United Nations Development Goals 2030, in spite of, in addition to causing severe losses in the infrastructure of Syrian economy and resources of Syria and the civil society and the private sector, and this is considered to be the same. These measures are considered to be the biggest challenge which our national government is facing. In spite of that, the Syrian government is making all efforts to improve the humanitarian situation on the ground and rehabilitate and rebuild what has been destroyed by the terrorism. And this requires from the international community to become part of us, to join us. Other organizations are also, we call upon to join us in a serious and urgent manner in order to take on the negative impact of the war and the economic sanctions that have been posed on the Syrian people. And parallel with our fight against terrorism, we have been trying to push forward the political path. We have been participating in the meetings of Astana because we believe that it was a framework which achieved tangible results on the ground. We have also dealt with positivity with the outcomes of the dialogue, National Dialogue Conference in Sochi, in which a committee was formed to discuss the constitution. We also became part of the serious dialogue with the UN envoy for Syria to form this committee. Syria is fully determined to form this committee and also completely following the minutest details by President Bashar al-Assad, which has led to some tangible achievement for the Syrian people. And all the efforts to obstruct this have been failed. And we refuse any foreign intervention in our internal affairs. Thank you very much for your patient hearing.
Thank you. delegate from Syria for this very emotional statement. I now call upon the delegate of the United Arab Emirates to make their statement.
Thank you, Mr. President. We are not listening to, we are not this, the voice is not coming. Sorry, we are not listening. The interpreters are not listening. There is some problem in the microphone. There is a problem in the microphone, the voice is not coming. I am sorry, the voice is not coming. We are not able to hear properly. There is a technical problem. The voice is not coming, it's not clear. Yes, we also were thankful to Kennedy Gaston, Secretary General of Organization, and the efforts that he has put in. Mr. President, the UAE affirms its commitment to the rules of international law and customary rules for the achievement of common interest. In this context, it is worth noting that the importance of navigation at sea in all its regions and the need to emphasize and facilitate the rules established by customs and formulated by the relevant international treaties related to international trade for the interest of the countries and their peoples. It is our duty to address the challenges that arise from time to time that may threaten the freedom of international navigation at sea and its various regions according to the fundamentals of international law, and to emphasize the freedom of navigation in the international straits as defined by the customs and treaties for this region. Given the recent events of the threat to this freedom in the Arabian Gulf and the Sea of Oman, and the resulting increased tension and even collision, therefore it is the duty of all of us to work to avoid these challenges, harmful effects, by reaffirming once again the principle of freedom of navigation in the international straits of all states and for all the ships, and ensuring the safety and security of international trade routes away from threats that contradict the higher interests of the international community. Mr. President, many international disputes continue to threaten friendly relations and cooperation among states, casting dark shadows on the course of international relations. They may even undermine international peace and security. These dangers must be addressed through the commitment to peaceful settlement of international disputes laid down in the UN Charter and General Assembly declarations of principles on relations between all states and cooperation among them. The principle of good neighborliness is one of the well-established principles of international law, which requires all states within a single geographical area to commit themselves to not to interfere in each other's internal affairs and to maintain stability for the benefit of all. Mr. President, the UAE reaffirmed its continued commitment to its role as an active partner in the Arab coalition led by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to restore legitimacy in Yemen and end the Houthi coup. We refer here to the joint statement issued by Saudi Arabia and the UAE on 8 September 2019 welcoming the response of the legitimate government of Yemen and the Southern Transitional Council to call the Saudi Kingdom for dialogue to stress the need to the sustainability of this positive atmosphere, to show the spirit of brotherhood, renounce division and collision, deal responsibly to overcome this crisis and its effects, and to prioritize the Yemeni people's interests above any other considerations. We also emphasize the pivotal role of the UAE in the liberation of Aden and most of the territories that were under the control of the coup plotters, the reconstruction of liberated areas to face the threat of terrorist organizations, and support the coalition's efforts to protect freedom of navigation in the state of Bab al-Mandab and the Red Sea. At the same time, we reaffirm that the UAE continues to fully support the efforts of the UN envoy to Yemen and remains deeply concerned by the deliberate and systematic Houthi violations of Security Council Resolution number 2216 and the Stockholm Agreement. Mr. President, the Palestinian people have suffered for so long, and it is no longer acceptable for the international community to remain silent vis-a-vis this tragedy, since no more people nowadays are under the occupation. We call on the international community to find a just and lasting solution to the Palestinian issue based on the right to self-determination and the establishment of an independent state on the borders of June 4, 1967, and recognition of East Jerusalem as the capital of a Palestinian state. It is time for the Palestinian people to obtain their legitimate right to establish their independent state based on the principles of international legitimacy and the Arab Initiative for Peace, so that the region can enjoy the stability and prosperity it rightly deserves. In conclusion, I wish all the works of this session to be culminated by success, and looking forward to achieving serious and positive results on all the items of its agenda. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
The delegation of the United Arab Emirates for this very time-conscious presentation. I now call upon the delegation of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
In the name of Allah. Excellency President and Vice President of this organization, of this session, Excellency Secretary General of ALCO, distinguished delegates, heads of the delegations, observers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. At the outset, I congratulate the President and Vice President for the trust they have received from the members of the participating delegations. I hope and wish and pray that this session becomes successful. Ladies and gentlemen, the agenda of this session contains a number of topics which are very important, which reflects the increasing legal role that this organization is playing. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia expresses its appreciation and interest for the efforts put in by the organization, especially at the international law level. Ladies and gentlemen, the Palestinian issue is one of the most important component of the agenda of this conference. Kingdom of Saudi Arabia reaffirms unwavering support for the Palestinian people and its entire its rights. It rejects completely the Israeli practices against the Palestinian people in violation of international laws and conventions. This embodies the unwavering position of the kingdom, which has been enumerated by the Saudi cabinet on 7th of September by condemning and disapproving and completely refusing the announcement of the Israeli Prime Minister of his intention of annexing territories of the West Bank occupied in 1967 to Israel, and considers this step null and void as part of the international law, and this will lead to escalation and deprivation of the rights of the Palestinian people, and it will constitute a violation, open violation of the UN Charter and principles of international law and international charters and covenants. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, realizing the important role played by ALCO, congratulates the efforts of this organization in exposing the Israeli practices and its violation of international law. Ladies and gentlemen, the agenda of the 58th session of ALCO contains a number of topics which have become talk of the world at the international level. Kingdom of Saudi Arabia supports the efforts for implementation of international laws and convention and treaties in a way that does not contradict with the principle of sovereignty of the states and their immunities. This is a principle that has been stated by UN Charter and reiterated by Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, that ensuring peace and international peace and security is invariably linked with the commitment to international principles as enshrined in the UN Charter. The world is getting closer day by day with technological and digital revolution, which is leaving no scope for us except to coexist and accept each other. Ladies and gentlemen, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia attaches great importance to investment and endeavors and tries to enhance and promote international trade and exchange, and it is also paving the way for international investment. We congratulate for the efforts put in by ALCO on the subject of peaceful settlement of disputes, especially with regard to investment. In this context, Saudi cabinet has issued a resolution to establish a Saudi Center for Commercial Arbitration as an independent non-profit organization. Saudi Arabia is an active member of organizations and treaties related to international investment and trade. Saudi Arabia is also reiterating the fact that exchange of trade and development of international investment is inevitably linked with international conventions and UN charters, and therefore international law must be. Ladies and gentlemen, at the end, I extend my thanks and appreciation to the Republic of Tanzania, the government and people, for its beautifully hosting this 50th session of ALCO, and now for the wonderful hospitality and nice arrangement, excellent arrangement. We also thank Secretary General of ALCO and the dynamic team for their efforts in preparation for the work of this session, and we hope that all the efforts are successful. And thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I thank the delegates of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for his very reassuring statement. I now call upon the delegation of Philippines, and while the Philippines are taking the podium, let me take this opportunity to welcome you, to congratulate you as the newest member of our organization. You are most welcome.
Professor Dr. Kennedy Gaston, Excellencies, colleagues, friends, ladies and gentlemen. At the 57th annual session of the ALCO in Tokyo last year, the Philippines re-engaged with this organization as an observer after having been absent for a number of years. I said then that as a country that was considering rejoining ALCO, the Philippines was much eager to know more about ALCO and its priorities and roadmap. Today, friends, the Philippines is happy to be back, and we thank Oman, Japan, and Mr. President, for the warm words of welcome on our readmission. It is also a matter of pride for the Philippines that at the 7th Biennial Conference of the Asian Society of International Law, which we hosted in Manila last August, we welcomed Secretary General Dr. Gastorn as one of our esteemed guests. I'm glad that today I've been able to reciprocate his visit. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is auspicious that we meet in this venue named after the Mualimo Julius Nyerere, the father of this country. Last week, 14 October, Tanzania and the world commemorated the 20th anniversary of Mualimo's passing. As an elder statesman, Mualimo traveled far to the Philippines 25 years ago in 1994 to share with us lessons from Tanzania's unique experience in governance. He also received an honorary Doctors of Law degree from my alma mater, the University of the Philippines. When power and other earthly riches were hardest to let go, Mualimo showed us the way. Filipinos remember him with the grace and dignity of knowing when to let go. In 1985, after a long time in public service, if other leaders in Africa and Asia and the rest of the world, including my own country at a point in our history, only took a page from him, then there would have been less suffering in our respective histories. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the Philippines is a firm believer in international law. Anchored by the multilateral treaty system, international law binds the community of nations to act within the bounds of mutually acceptable behaviors and thereby prevent anarchy in the global order. The vision of the UN Charter remains as relevant as it is eloquent since the conclusion of the San Francisco Conference in 1945, where the Philippines was present. That is, the rule of law at the international level is the great equalizer among states, giving voice to all nations, regardless of their political, economic, and military stature. During the drafting of the UN Charter, the Philippines took common cause with many countries in this region and authored progressive ideas on trusteeship and the proper disposition of former colonial territories. As the first country in Asia to have declared independence and deeply keen on the issue of self-governance, the Philippines urged the Assembly to add the term independence in what is now Article 76 in the chapter on international trusteeship system. Many trust territories benefited from this strong advocacy of the Philippines and other countries for eventual independence, and my understanding that it likewise benefited our host country, Tanzania. In 1982, the Philippines also led several Asian and African partners in having the UN General Assembly adopt the 1982 Manila Declaration on the Peaceful Settlement of International Disputes. Heralded as arguably the single most important UN General Assembly resolution on the subject, the Manila Declaration is the authoritative articulation of our collective duty under the UN Charter to peacefully resolve disputes pursuant to the UN Convention of the Law of the Sea and the Manila Declaration. The Philippines availed of international law to peacefully resolve maritime issues in the South China Sea, resulting in the arbitral award of 12 July 2016, which is a victory not just for the Philippines, but also for the global order governed by international law. It is with this outlook that we find as crucially relevant many of the items in this session's agenda and look forward to sharing knowledge, experiences, and recommendations on these issues, notably on international trade and investment law, the law of the sea, and the peaceful settlement of disputes. As a country surrounded by waters, or more precisely as an archipelagic state, the second largest at that, we support the proposal of the United Arab Emirates to introduce the subtopic issues related to the freedom of navigation, sail in the international waters and straits. It is important to have greater clarity on this matter, not just to ensure freedom of navigation, but also to safeguard the rights of coastal states, including to their maritime zones. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we all recognize the need to grow international law at the domestic level as well. There's not enough time for any of us to exhaust the inventory of national actions on this regard. We are thankful, of course, to the many delegations for the important information that they have shared. For my part, just allow me to tell you about the resurgence of international law discourse in the Philippines. As mentioned earlier, the Philippines hosted the biennial conference of the Asian Society of International Law last August. Its theme was Rethinking International Law, Finding Common Solutions to Contemporary Civilizational Issues from an International Perspective. Dr. Gastorn joined important dignitaries in our field, notably Judge Yuji Iwasawa of the International Court of Justice and Dr. Arinudha Rajput of the International Commission, who are also here in our assembly. This important year for international law in the Philippines also witnessed the relaunch of the Philippine Yearbook of International Law after an absence for quite some time. This yearbook is the work of the revitalized Philippine Society of International Law, and yours truly is the current Vice President. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude my contribution, let me urge everyone to make the most of international law and international cooperation. It may not have the solutions to all our problems, but it provides the best opportunity to promote social progress and better standards of life in larger freedom for the benefit of the present and future generations. I thank the other delegations for their contributions to our session's very rich debate, and to the people and government of Tanzania for the warm hospitality and the excellent arrangements for our meeting. Maraming salamat po. Thank you. Asante.
Thank you very much, the delegates of the Philippines, for your discourse on international law and the rule of law in international affairs. Thank you very much, very educative. I now call upon the delegation of Sri Lanka to take the floor.
Your Excellency, the President of the 58th Annual Session of ALCO, Your Excellency, the Vice President, Your Excellency, Professor Kennedy Gaston, Secretary General of ALCO, Honorable Ministers, Heads of Delegations of member and non-member states, representatives of regional, interregional, and international organizations, and specialized agencies, invitees, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to address you as the leader of the delegation of the Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka on this momentous occasion in this beautiful city of Dar es Salaam. I would like to start off by expressing, on behalf of all of whom I represent, our wholehearted appreciation to the ALCO for its untiring efforts in making invaluable contributions to the field of international law and bringing the global village even closer. I would like to take this opportunity to extend our congratulations and good wishes to the members of the Secretariat in carrying forward the work of ALCO, which has been in existence for 63 years and counting. I believe I speak for everyone in this esteemed gathering when I say that we are proud to observe the growth of ALCO and the increasing reception and recognition that this organization so rightly deserves. At the last annual session conducted in Tokyo, Japan, attention was drawn to global governance and international rule of law. The meeting today, in this 58th annual session, seeks to focus on multilateralism and the international legal order based on international law. It follows the same theme of last year, but with an international twist in the direction of international legal order based on international law. The United Nations Economic Commission for Africa identifies that challenges that range from widespread poverty and undernourishment, financial and economic crisis, climate change impact, human insecurity, organized crime, drug trafficking, and many others are linked in inextricable ways. It is pertinent to note that different nations may hold different views and approaches to these issues in principle, and these views may change with times due to surrounding circumstances. It is necessary to take these factors into consideration while formulating multilateral treaties following a social engineering approach with the aim of reducing tensions between conflicting interests. There is therefore a need to formulate collective and harmonious goals for the future. If I may quote a former Deputy Minister of Justice of Sri Lanka, Honorable Sarathi Dushmantha, I quote, "In the modern world, only regional harmony can create a conducive environment for countries to further their national interest," unquote. At this juncture, permit me, ladies and gentlemen, to also emphasize the importance of upholding the sovereign interests of each of the 48 member nations. This number is only expected to rise in the coming years, which makes the topic of multilateralism of escalating importance. The continents of Asia and Africa house a variety of cultures and ethnicities. Sri Lanka, being a multi-ethnic country, is well aware of the precarious course that must be steered in balancing diverging sensitivities of the stakeholders involved. On behalf of my delegation, I would like to avail myself of this opportunity to state that I have the utmost confidence that this esteemed forum will reach holistic and congruent resolutions in promoting multilateralism and international legal order. And I affirm Sri Lanka's continuous support as we provided since its inception to this esteemed organization of ALCO in achieving its end. Ladies and gentlemen, we have ahead of us a week of deliberations to look forward to. And as we share our experiences and come together to overcome common challenges in subjects of mutual interest, I implore the distinguished participants here today to remain aware that while our approaches to pressing issues may be different, we pursue a common goal: to facilitate the advancement of the regions of Asia and Africa through the holistic development of its individual constituent states. I would like to conclude by extending my heartfelt gratitude on behalf of my delegation to the people of the United Republic of Tanzania for their warmth and hospitality, and to the organizers of the 58th annual session of ALCO for their exceptional arrangements. Thank you, and I hope you all have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
I thank the delegation of Sri Lanka for the kind words and for the very optimistic and promising future for ALCO. I now call upon the delegation of the Islamic Republic of Iran.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. At the outset, I would like to extend our sincere appreciation to the people and government of Tanzania for the excellent arrangements and their warm welcome and hospitality. I also thank the Secretary General of ALCO, Professor Kennedy Gaston, and his capable team in the Secretariat for their admirable work and preparation. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, we are gathered here to exhibit once again our spirit of amity in pursuit of a prosperous, functional, and inclusive multilateral framework. The Asian and African culture is imbued with noble values such as moderation, wisdom, inclusiveness, and peaceful coexistence. Our cooperation for the promotion of human prosperity and dignity contributes to the global policies through various multilateral arrangements. We can pride ourselves in a world of peace, cooperation, and development. To that end, multilateralism with the United Nations at its heart has become indispensable in enabling states to establish common approaches to all aspects of global governance, while also generating ideas to address security challenges and improve the quality of life. Increasingly serious threats to global security and the planet's future are, however, a direct consequence of weakening multilateralism. Recent global political developments have put the future of development and multilateralism at risk. Narrowly interpreted national interests, short-sighted politics, coercion, competition, and confrontation are overtaking cooperation, dialogue, and respect for international law. But protectionism and self-isolation will lead nowhere. No single country, no matter how powerful or wealthy, can seek to assume for itself the global unilateral monopoly and seeking solution to all the world's problems. As an alarming situation, some powerful states are prone to exploit unilateral sanctions unlawfully as an economic warfare against other countries. In the same vein, weaponizing economy and currency could lead to economic terrorism and targeting the most vulnerable people and the life of the civilians. Mr. President, I don't need to list the extensive unlawful unilateralist policies of the US administration towards several countries or our region, but here is just a glimpse. Extraterritorial imposition of domestic legislations, floating of international accords and ICJ provisional order, breeding radicalization through reckless and pointless forever wars, shielding of terror-sponsoring clients from their war crimes, and recognition of illegal and racist annexations. As if this lawlessness is not enough, the US also punishes those who seek to fulfill their obligations under Security Council Resolution 2231. To defend multilateralism, it is imperative to deny the US perceived benefit from its unlawful actions and to forcefully reject any pressure it brings to bear on others to violate international law and Security Council resolutions. Let us not forget that the imposition of the will of a single power over other nations is an existential threat sooner or later for everyone. Unless we align our capabilities to secure multilateralism a rising and aggressive unilateralist wave can cover the entire world, quickly replacing the rule of law with the rule of power, if not jungle. We all should be concerned about this trend, keeping silence, and the consistent violations of international law may even mislead the international community in defining the applicable rules of customary international law in terms of state practice and opinio juris. Mr. President, grave violations of international law in the occupied Palestinian territories continue persistently. Now, after years of blockade on Gaza Strip, we observe new violations of international law by Israeli regime and its proponents. The expansion of settlement by mass destruction of Palestinian homes was a catastrophe that happened during last year. This event accompanied by the relocation of U.S. Embassy in mid-October 2018 in occupied territories, which itself was a blatant violation of international law. In this connection, it is also worthy to refer to the recognition of sovereignty of Israeli regime over Golan Heights by the United States, which was a recognition of a wrongful act by this state and even contradicts the UN Security Council Resolution 497 of 1981, which the US itself was voted for, emphasizing that, and I quote, decides that the Israeli decision to impose its laws, jurisdiction and administration in the occupied Syrian Golan Heights is null and void, unquote. These heinous and irritating violations gradually will erode the trust to international law and undermine the international legal order based on international law. The international community should fulfill its responsibility in rejecting the aforesaid decisions and actions, as their aims are to legalize the occupation and to restore the right of the people of Palestine to establish their own independent Palestinian state with Al-Quds al-Sharif as its capital. Mr. President, on the issue of freedom of navigation in international waters and straits, the Islamic Republic of Iran recognized the right to innocent passage from international straits, in particular Hormuz Strait, as it enshrined in 1958 Convention on the Territorial Sea and the Contiguous Zone, which determined this right. We also reiterated this position constantly and in a number of occasions, especially in framework of an interpretive declaration during Third Conference on the Law of the Sea. In light of recent developments in the region, and based upon the historical responsibility of my country in maintaining security, peace, stability, and progress in the Persian Gulf region and Strait of Hormuz, President Hassan Rouhani, our president, outlined Hormuz peace endeavor or hope in the United Nations General Assembly during 74th session as an initiative for promoting dialogue, freedom of navigation, energy security, non-aggression and non-intervention, confidence-building measures, military contacts, and the conclusion of a non-aggression pact. Additionally, HOPE seeks to establish a joint task force on various issues regarding practical measures to gradually expand cooperation, including in early warning, prevention and resolution of conflicts, combating drug and human trafficking, joint investments and ventures in energy, transit and transportation, and cooperation in cybersecurity. They have proposed Hormuz peace endeavor HOPE to all littoral states of the Persian Gulf in a bid to reduce tensions in the strategic waterway. Mr. President, with this, let me conclude my statement and hope that we will experience another fruitful and successful session. I wish all the best for ALCO and member states during the deliberations on the agenda items for which we have gathered here. I thank you for your attention.
I thank the statement by the delegation of the Islamic Republic of Iran, which was very integrated and composite in many aspects of unilateralism, versus multilateralism. I now call upon the delegation of Qatar, Emirates of Qatar.
شكرا السيد الرئيس. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. سعادة الأمين العام للمنظمة القانونية الاستشارية الأفريقية الآسيوية، السادة أعضاء المنظمة، الحضور الكرام، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. في البداية أود أن أهني معالي الدكتور أوغستين ماهيغا وسعادة الدكتور محمد الشلالدة على انتخابهم رئيسا ونائبا للرئيس للدورة 58، متمنيا لهم التوفيق والنجاح في إدارة هذه الدورة والوصول إلى الأهداف والغايات المرجوة. كما يسعدني أن أنقل لحضراتكم خالص تحيات سعادة الدكتور عيسى بن سعد الجفاري النعيمي وزير العدل القطري، وخالص تحيات الوفد القطري المشارك في اجتماعات الدورة 58 للمنظمة الاستشارية القانونية الآسيوية الأفريقية، والتي تحرص دولة قطر على المشاركة في كافة أنشطتها والوفاء بالتزاماتها المالية إيمانا بدورها الرائد. واسمحوا لي أن أتوجه بالشكر والتقدير لجمهورية تنزانيا الاتحادية على استضافتها للدورة 58 للمنظمة، وعلى حفاوة الاستقبال وكرم الضيافة وتوفير كافة سبل الراحة لإقامة الوفد القطري. الحضور الكرام، ساهمت المنظمة في إيجاد أنظمة قانونية دولية عادلة توفر للمجتمع الدولي أساساً للتعاون وحل النزاعات سلمياً، ووسائل تكفل عدم العودة إلى الحروب، ومن ثم فإنه يحدوني أمل كبير في أن تسود سيادة القانون مما يمكن جميع الدول الأعضاء في الأسرة الدولية من ضمان إرساء العدالة على نحو منصف على الصعيد الوطني، مع التقيد التام بمبادئ القانون الدولي في الخارج. كما أدعو رؤساء الدول والحكومات إلى الالتزام بأعلى معايير سيادة القانون لدى صنع القرارات في جميع الأوقات، بحيث تكون سيادة القانون هي الأساس في كل عمل قد تقوم به الحكومات، وأن تتوحد وجهتنا نحو قيم مشتركة تضمن للشعوب الرفاهية وللدول الاستقرار وللمجتمع الدولي التعاون، فلا شرعية لأي عمل لا يتفق مع القانون. والبعد الدولي لمفهوم سيادة القانون أعرب عنه بوضوح مشروع إعلان حقوق الدول وواجباتها الذي أعدته لجنة القانون الدولي في عام 1949، والذي تقضي مادته 14 بأنه على كل دولة واجب تصريف علاقاتها مع الدول الأخرى وفقا للقانون الدولي، وبموجب المبدأ الذي يخضع سيادة كل دولة لسيادة القانون الدولي. وتحرص دولة قطر دائما على أن تكون طرفا إيجابيا فاعلا ذا دور بناء على المستوى الدولي عبر علاقاتها السياسية والاقتصادية المتوازنة والمتميزة على المستويين الثنائي والمتعدد الأطراف. ويظهر ذلك واضحا في كل خطابات سمو أمير دولة قطر المفدى، فإن سموه يشدد على مواصلة تنمية هذا النهج لقيام دولة قطر بمسؤوليتها والتزاماتها على مختلف الصعد وطنيا وإقليميا ودوليا. الحضور الكرام، إن التحدي الحقيقي يكمن في تطبيق القواعد القانونية الدولية وتنفيذ الالتزامات القانونية الدولية في كل المنازعات التي تقوم بين الدول وعند الخلاف، وهو أمر وارد يتعين اللجوء إلى الوسائل السلمية وتسوية المنازعات على أساسها، فإن ذلك يعطي كل ذي حق حقه ويبقي على العلاقات بين الدول. وقد كان مبدأ تسوية جميع النزاعات الدولية بالوسائل السلمية مثل التفاوض أو التوفيق أو التحكيم أو التسوية القضائية وكافة الوسائل السلمية الأخرى التي يختارها الطرفان وفقا لميثاق الأمم المتحدة محور ارتكاز كافة المواثيق والإعلانات الدولية ذات الصلة. كما يطلب ميثاق الأمم المتحدة من جميع أعضاء المنظمة تسوية نزاعاتهم الدولية بالوسائل السلمية على نحو لا يعرض السلم والأمن الدوليين للخطر، وحرص منا على دعم المنظومة الدولية في كل ما من شأنه إعلاء سيادة القانون وتوفير البيئة المناسبة للأمن والسلم والعدالة الاجتماعية. وقعت دولة قطر على وثيقة الانضمام إلى اتفاقية الأمم المتحدة للتسوية للتسوية الدولية الناتجة عن الوساطة المعروفة باسم اتفاقية سنغافورة بشأن الوساطة، وذلك خلال حفل التوقيع الذي تم في جمهورية سنغافورة مؤخرا. وبذلك تكون دولة قطر في صدارة الدول الموقعة على هذه الاتفاقية النموذجية الهادفة إلى تسهيل إجراءات التقاضي وتوفير الوسائل البديلة لحل النزاعات وكفالة ترسيخ العدالة الناجزة. الحضور الكرام، إن موقف دولة قطر في دعم القضية الفلسطينية بكافة المحافل الدولية ثابت لا يتغير، ومن حق الشعب الفلسطيني تقرير مصيره وإقامة دولته المستقلة، كما له الحق في العودة والسيادة على الموارد الطبيعية لدولته وعدم شرعية الاستيطان، فإن أي قرار أحادي الجانب بضم القدس يعقد الأمور ولا يحلها وهو لاقيا وباطلا وغير شرعيا وفقا لقرار مجلس الأمن رقم 478 الصادر في 20 من أغسطس سنة 1980. وتسعى دولة قطر بكل الطرق ومن خلال شبكة علاقاتها مع جميع الأطراف الدولية ومؤسسات الأمم المتحدة من أجل تحسين حياة الناس وتجنيبهم ويلات الحروب ومن انهيار المؤسسات الرسمية وكل مما شأنه أن ينعكس سلبا على حياة السكان. الحضور الكرام، إن التقدم المتسارع في مجال الفضاء الإلكتروني يدعونا جميعا إلى مواصلة الجهود التي تتناول سيادة الدول في الفضاء الإلكتروني والجرائم الإلكترونية، ونثمن ما تحقق في القانون الدولي في هذا المجال سواء من منظمة الأمم المتحدة ومنظمة الألكو. فلا يخفى ما تعرضت له دولة قطر لهجمات القرصنة والاختراق على الموقع الإلكتروني لوكالة الأنباء القطرية وفبركة تصريحات إعلامية على أساس أنها صادرة عنها، وهو الأمر الذي أثار استياء المجتمع الدولي وأظهر قلق أوساط واسعة رسمية وشعبية في العالم من عدم وجود مؤسسات وتشريعات دولية واضحة تنظم الأمن الرقمي والإفلات من عمليات القرصنة الإلكترونية وتعاقب مرتكبي الجرائم العابرة للحدود فيها. الحضور الكرام، وفي نهاية كلمتي اسمحوا لي أن أتوجه بخاصة الشكر والامتنان مرة أخرى لجمهورية تنزانيا الاتحادية على الاستضافة، كما أقتنم هذه المناسبة تقديم التحية إلى كافة المشاركين في أعمال هذه الدورة، متمنيا للجميع التوفيق والنجاح، وأشكركم على حسن الاستماع، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
I thank you very much, the delegation of the Emirate of Qatar, for its powerful messages. And with that statement, we have come to the end of this afternoon's presentation, and we'll break and continue the statements tomorrow at 9 o'clock. We'll start with India tomorrow and proceed Nepal, South Korea, and Vietnam. If there are any more additions for people wishing to make statements tomorrow, just contact the Secretariat. Let me remind you of the invitation for dinner tonight. The Secretariat will again give you directions where the dinner is being offered by your host. And welcome all of you, please. Yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the session for today. There is evening tea being served at Kitulo Hall and the lobby as well for the rest of the delegates, Kitulo for the VIPs. But as Honorable Ambassador Agustina Mahiga said, there's also going to be a dinner today at Kilimanjaro on the 3rd floor. Please remember to bring your cards that you have been given. If you have not been given, please just raise up your hand and you will be given an invitation card. So please, the session will start at 6, which I believe is now. So you are all welcome for that session.